a little while ago. Yeah, so for both for for this family being relatively safe and in a much better place than they were, and for your congregation for being able to do all that, we say Modim Anachnu Lach. And if you're online, you can share in the chat box. For all these gifts, O source of blessing, we sing your praises and we thank you. We thank you, O God. Amen. We're going to shift gears slightly because I'm tired. Not from the kids, not from running, but I'm tired of anti-Semitism. I'm tired of preaching about it. I think this is my third sermon or teach on this in 2 months. I don't even know. I'm tired of having it dictate our policies, right? That Stacy out there and our police officers, they're wonderful people, but we shouldn't have to have them out there. And I'm tired of the fear. I'm tired of the worry, not only for myself, but really for my family, right? For my kids. And I know that I'm not alone. I see some nodding as I'm saying all this, and there's actually an article, I think it might have been last week, perhaps this week, from Kveller, which is an online sort of humorous, sort of family-oriented online magazine from an author, Jordana Horn, and it's called Anyone Else Experiencing Anti-Semitism Fatigue? So at least clearly she and I are. And she says this: maybe you feel like the world around you might be collapsing, that the pot of water you're sitting in just might be getting hotter. But you're also endlessly wondering, is it going toward the boiling point? And if it is, will we know before it's too late? She expresses feelings we all might feel, right? The exhaustion, the fear, the worry, the unknown, the vulnerability that comes with facing the unknown. And with all those feelings, with the anti-Semitism, we might want to simply stick our heads in the sand. But she challenges that. This is what Ms. Horn says. Standing in the barrage and not doing anything is an option for sure, but to what end? I mean, sure, I guess you can just scroll by the stuff on about this on Instagram, not post anything yourself, just post pics of you looking hot with your partner at the event of your choice. And I guess if you don't think about anti-Semitism or the fact that every day more and more people are getting taught to hate you, you'll feel better than you would if you really thought about it. For now. Not thinking about it, not doing anything is an option until it's not. Until it gets more real, until it becomes something that we have to confront. And that happened to me just this week, and not just me. We were at a restaurant. It was actually the BJC staff and the church staff and Friends Club. Everyone, all the staff members went out to lunch. Overall, a great experience. Lots of joking and sharing of dessert and what is it called? A white elephant. And overall, a fun time until one staff member, not from here, one of the restaurant staff members, walked in and tried to tell a joke. We hadn't seen this person before, but he just walks in and he says, as I say to my Jewish friends, was anything all right? Right, exactly. There was that sort of pause, that moment of what just happened? And honestly, I was speechless. I was stunned. I had no idea what to say. I had no idea how to respond in that moment. And I'll be honest, I didn't respond in that moment. And so now I'm asking myself, well, why not? And I think part of it is that it's hard. It's hard to confront someone. It's hard to confront someone not behind a screen or behind a keyboard, but actually in person. It's hard when it's right there in front of you, not this theoretical or hypothetical thing, but right there in front of you. And there's also that exhaustion, right? Of that, well, why do I have to respond? Why is the onus on me? He made the comment. Why should it be me who has to respond? Why is the onus on us? But sometimes it is. Sometimes we have to respond. This is, I think, how Jacob felt in some ways in this week's Torah portion. Vayishlach. So we're near the end of Jacob's story. He has left his homeland. He has traveled to Haran, lived with his uncle Laban. He got married. He had kids. He matured. He grew up. And there's one last thing that he has to do. He needs to reconcile with his estranged brother Esau. And so he sends messengers to his brother Esau, and part of his message is this: Im Lavan Garti, Va'echar ad ata. To my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I lived with Laban and remained until now. And he's hoping to find favor with Esau. But he uses a particular word. He says, Garti, I lived with Laban. And if you know modern Hebrew, you know that's past tense, I lived. But Rabbi Kenneth J. Weiss, he's the rabbi and director of Houston Hillel, he picks up on this word, Garti. Says he could have used any other word. So I dwelled, I stayed, but he says I lived. And he connects that word Garti, with ger, which means stranger or alien. Abraham, his grandfather, had called himself a ger, an alien. And so according to Rabbi Weiss, it's not just I lived in that land, I lived with Laban, but I lived as a stranger, as an alien. He was surrounded by people who wanted to put him down. He was surrounded by people who did not see and understand the world the way he did. He was far from home, far from what he saw as comfortable, as maybe even safe. And yet, despite being in that strange world, despite being an alien, part of why he used this word was to say, and yet I survived and I thrived. How did he do so? Rabbi Weiss says, by keeping the mitzvot, by living a Jewish life. He was able to say, this is what a Jew does, and so I'll do it. And in so doing, he declared essentially, I am proudly Jewish. He took it upon himself to push back against those external factors, to take up the mantle of a proud Jewish identity. So we might, like Jacob, feel surrounded by those who want to harm us, by people who just see the world differently than us, and so we need to proudly declare, I am Jewish. Now, sometimes this means standing up against anti-Semitism, as hard as that might be. Again, I know it's hard, but sometimes doing the difficult thing is doing the right thing. It's why it took me a couple of days, but I called the restaurant, and I managed to get a hold of that staff member, and I talked with him, and I expressed how his words hurt, and how he used these anti-Semitic tropes. It wasn't a joke to me. It was not funny. It was harmful. And thankfully, in the end, he agreed that it was in poor taste, and he essentially apologized, saying he would not use the joke again. And we might even, I don't know if it'll happen, maybe we'll grab coffee, or as he said, grab a beer. We'll see what happens. That call, though, was one of the hardest that I had to make, but in the end, I was able to say, I didn't use these words exactly, but I was basically able to express that I am proud to be Jewish, and this is why it hurt. Now, we don't always have to be that direct. Sometimes we won't have that opportunity, right? Hopefully we don't have that opportunity. And maybe it's just not who we are, but there's another way. A few months ago, Dana Bash of CNN wrote this great article about herself and her son. She said that leading up to last Hanukkah, her 10-year-old asked for a Star of David, a Magen David necklace. And he's 10, she dismissed him. She was like, oh, he doesn't want that. He wants, I don't know, Legos or whatever. And during Hanukkah, as it became clear that she didn't get the gift, he looked disappointed, and he asked, why? Why, is this coming? Why didn't you get it for me? And so, she felt awful. She was like, well, why do you want the necklace? And he said this, in her words. He said that a lot of his Christian friends at school wore crosses and that he wanted to wear a symbol of his own faith. He told me he is a proud Jew. So Dana was full of pride, and yet she was also a little nervous that wearing a visible sign of Judaism could cause harm. She's a journalist. She did her research. One of the things she found out is that wearing Jewish symbols can actually help combat anti-Semitism. Wearing a Star of David, for example, helps us say, this is me. here I am, this is who I am, Jewish and all. Maybe it sparks conversation, maybe it reminds someone else of our humanity. Whatever it is, proudly displaying our Jewish identity can help us push back against anti-Semitism and help us flourish, just like Jacob. Our tradition teaches in Pirkei Avot, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. It is not up to you to finish the work, but neither may you desist from it. It's not our job to end anti-Semitism. We might be tired, we might be afraid, but neither may we stop trying entirely. Whether we speak up against hate and ignorance, or display our Jewish heritage and tradition and identity proudly, may we proudly, unequivocally show off our Jewish pride. And so we continue on page 304. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. It is not up to us to finish the work, but neither may we desist from it. Page